What up, YouTube? I am your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, back in here with one more video. You guys see it, Jordan Peterson, my man. The real reason marriage exists. I want to see the young scholar's interpretation. Without further ado.
That's actually why people get married, just so you know. Because this is built into marital vows. I'm not leaving, ever, no matter what. It's like, okay, well, that definitely puts a boundary around our arguments, right? Because I can't say every time you manifest one of your flaws, which you're likely to do just as often as me, well, enough of this. It's like, that's horrible, man. If your whole life is, well, every time you get out of line, I'm out of here. It's like, how the hell are you? First of all, you're not going to admit to ever doing anything wrong. Second, you're going to be on your, you're like a scared cat the entire relationship because, well, who knows? It could just come to an end at any moment. It's like, people say, well, if the possibility of divorce is open, it makes you free. It's like, yeah, that's what you want. You want to be free, eh? Really? Really? So you can't predict anything. That's what you're after. It's a vow. And it says, look, I know that you're trouble. Me too. So we won't leave, no matter what happens. Well, that's a hell of a vow, but that's why it's a vow, right? That's why you take it in front of a bunch of people. That's why it's supposed to be a sacred act. It's like, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Everything is mutable and changeable at any moment. Well, go ahead. You live your life like that and see what you're like when you're 50. Jesus, it's dismal. 2 or 3 divorces, your family's fragmented, you've got no continuity of narrative. It's not good for the kids, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Let me pause right there. Let me react initially to what he's saying. So I think previously going into this conversation, I was not aware of Jordan Peterson's stance on marriage. And listen, the idea, and I've talked about this on my channel before, of utilizing a contract to hold 2 people together. In my eyes, in order to be able to do that, why can't you do that without government intervention? And what Jordan is saying is that without the vows, humans will be humans. And I've been saying that since Jump Street. So you're in a catch-22. You're in a conundrum if you follow under that prescription, underneath that logic, because without the vows, humans may be humans. But with the vows, it locks you together and makes it increasingly hard to get out of that, especially if you're the person who was the breadwinner and if there's kids involved. Now, I will also relinquish probably previous statements that I said before in a sense of when he brings up, what's your life going to be like at 50? And honestly, I mean, it's a good question to ask. Let me share with you guys a real quick short story as to how I see what he says as beneficial. I have a neighbor. This neighbor, married, beautiful family. At the age of about 59, he suffered a massive stroke. And here's what I think about. If he wasn't married at 59 and he suffered that stroke, what would happen to him? Now that he's married, okay, now that he took those vows, whatever decades ago, his wife is in a marriage situation with him and she has not left. You understand what I'm saying? His wife now has become his caretaker, right? But here's one thing that ran through my mind when that situation has happened. It happened a couple of years ago, and I still see him when I go back, and he's a former shell of the person that I grew up as being a neighbor towards. His speech is greatly affected. Can't express himself anymore. It's really sad to see. And I think it's something that when we're all in our prime, we do take for granted our health, right? One of our most valuable assets next to time is our health. And when you're healthy, you're not thinking about not being healthy. Now, he did suffer this ailment, this catastrophic stroke. And I asked myself, what would his life be like if he wasn't married? A lot different than it is today. So I want to leave you guys with that particular nugget of information. Oftentimes I talk complete-ish about marriage, but it's a thought that I had and I wanted to share it because Jordan just sparked that thought in my mind. What will your life be at 50? What will it be like at 60? Some people say they're going to live that Hugh Hefner lifestyle. You understand? A lot of people also forget Hugh Hefner was married. You know? I'll leave you guys to think about it in the battle down in the comments based on what I'm saying. But let's get back in there.
And so it's a form of voluntary enslavement, I suppose, but it's also equivalent to the adoption of a responsibility. And there's more to it than that. If you can't run away, then you can solve your problems. Because it might be, okay, well, I'm stuck with you. So how about we fix things? Because the alternative is we're going to be in a boxing match for the next 40 years. That's the alternative. So, and you think you're going to fix problems without something like that hanging over your head? There isn't a chance.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jordan. There's some problems that are not worth fixing. And that's the thing, is like I see people get into marriages and I'm just like, whoa, like, you know, that, or just relationships in general. Some problems are not worth fixing, right? So I guess if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, then the man and the woman have done enough due diligence to understand, you know what I'm saying, the type of people that they actually are, to see if this is a person that you want to spend the rest of your life fixing problems with. But I agree with you. Sounds like involuntary or voluntary enslavement. I agree with that. Oh, let's move on.
You'll just avoid them because that's what people do. It's really hard to solve problems, especially in a relationship. We're having a fight and I find out that it's, you know, because you were abused by your uncle when you were 5 or some goddamn thing. You know, it's like, it's very frequent that that sort of thing happens. There's your partner's, you know, manifesting some weird anomalous behavior. You just can't make heads or tails of it. It doesn't seem related to what you're doing at all. They don't want to talk about it. And so as soon as you bring it up, they get mad. And then you bring it up again, they even get madder, and they tell you that you're not going to talk about that or they're going to leave. And so maybe you're really, really persistent because you're kind of a son of a bitch, and then they break down and cry, you know? And then they have this horrible memory that comes flooding forward that's completely, you don't know what to do with it, and then you have to sort it out. It's like, you think you're going to do that unless there's a good reason? You have to know, we better sort this out, or we're going to be carrying it around for the next 40 years. That maybe is enough motivation so you'll actually try hard to solve a problem.
So also real quick too. So here's the thing, Jordan, you can solve problems without getting married. That's the first thing that I would say to you if we were sitting like right across from each other, talking to each other. There's other ways to do that. Now, I do agree, right? Like there's been situations where I've been into and, you know, ties were cut and there was some, extenuating circumstances that were left, those stones were left unturned and unfixed. You understand what I'm saying? Which is why I also think that we should all be proponents of therapy, of mental health counseling, right? I think having a third party to diagnose some underlying issues from a mental health perspective is invaluable in each and every one of our lives. So I agree with you, but I think what you're not considering when you're putting all this in is the detriment of what can happen if the split needs to happen, if people decide to go their own way on top of that. I think that there's far less risky ways to learn from experience or to fix through your actions. Okay, let's keep going.
It's a lot easier to say, well, sorry, we're not going there. But then, good, you'll have it every day, every goddamn day for the rest of your life. See, there's some additional problems with divorce that people don't really grasp when they're young. Like the idea that you can be divorced once you have children, that's kind of a stupid idea, because you can't. You can find a limited substitute for your initial freedom. But if you have kids and you try to get divorced, the probability that that's going to demolish your life is very, very high. First of all, it's incredibly expensive. So one or both of you is going to come out of that poor. And your market value has declined. Let's say you're the woman who takes the kids. Your market value has declined radically. You're going to be poorer. The man, he's just as screwed because he is now an indentured servant and there's no escape from it. So it's not so bad if you can negotiate a peaceful separation, and some people can, but lots of times if you have a terrible relationship, It's not like negotiating a peaceful separation is all that easy. But if you're at each other's throats, good luck to you. I think it's roughly equivalent to having non-fatal cancer. It is not pleasant. It's a 10-year process, 15-year process. It'll cost you $250,000, and it'll tear a big chunk out of your life. And also, it will really disrupt your relationship with your kids.
Jeez. All I can think of, what the things that he's saying is how important it is that if you decide to jump that broom, what you're actually setting yourself up for, potentially. Choose wisely, if you decide to choose. A lot of us have decided to never choose. Oh God, let's get back down in there. I got like a sinking pit in my stomach as he began to describe that in the way that he did.
And you bring kids into a step-parent family, they do not do as well. Step-parents are not as good parents as biological parents, and the data on that is clear. Now, obviously, there are exceptions, because there are terrible biological parents, and there are wonderful step-parents. But if you look in aggregate, it's not that easy to care for children. You need everything you can binding you to them. And if they're someone else's children, mostly they get in the way of the person that you love.
Yeah.
Right? Well, let's say you have a child, I'll be right out. Let's say you have a child and I want to go out with you. Every second you spend with that child is the second you don't spend with me. And there's going to be a price for that. I'm not going to be happy about that. And if I have a child, you're going to feel exactly the same way. You might say, well, no, I love children. It's like, yeah, sure you do.
Shout out to Jordan Peterson. I got guys, send me more dope reactions like this. Shout out to the Patreon gang. I like the way that he has a no nonsense approach to a lot of this. I remember correctly, Jordan Peterson is married, and I think he has a daughter, just one daughter. So I like the way he can articulate his points. He's obviously a very smart person who has done a lot of research into genders and relationships, dating, and its dynamics. I like the way that he summarizes in a really realistic way, right? Like where he's not shying away from the realities, okay? From the realities of marriage, the realities of divorce, the realities of having kids within all of that. So I appreciate that. A lot of knowledge learned today. You know what I'm saying? I like reactions like this. You understand what I'm saying? That has been your video. That has been your reaction. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. Hit me up. I got an Instagram as well. Go up there and follow me. At Mediocre tutorials and reviews. It's long, but you can spell. Link down in the description box down below. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.